But so first guest to make a second appearance on the WiLLcast series, Mr. Nick Putty.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back. So what's the brewing process here at Wisconsin Lighting Lab look like 3 years in? How's it going?
Good. Things have been learned.
Yeah.
Lots of things. Actually, even recently, things have been learned. I've had 25 brew sessions now, somewhere on there.
Has it been about 3 years?
I think we're at about 2.5.
Okay.
Because there's the acquirement of all the materials, getting everything built out, testing, figuring stuff out as we went. But
So that's about one a month.
yeah.
Yep.
I typically shoot for about one a month, one every 3 to 4 weeks. Now that the world is kind of normal again.
Hopefully pointed that direction.
Yeah,
at least,
we're going to try to ramp up production a little bit more, try to
Nice.
get more of a stockpile.
Yep.
But no, even in the last couple months, more things have been learned on the system. I thought I had 2 pumps that just flat out failed. But much like as we were talking earlier with race cars, you have to rebuild stuff every once in a while. So I have to just rebuild the pumps. Couple thrust washers that just weren't there anymore.
So are 2 pumps required for the system, or is one a redundant backup pump?
So one is just circulating water
Yep.
for the hot water tank. So just maintains pressure or temperatures, just constantly keeps water moving, so there's no hot spots. And then the second pump is the work pump, I guess you could call it. It's the one that's transferring whatever fluids, whether it be water or beer or into the fermenter and cooling it down. So that's the one that does the bulk of the work, but at the same time they're both running about the same amount. One's always circulating water, one's always circulating beer. So for them to actually both go out at the end of the same brew session was actually kind of expected, and at the same time nice, because I didn't have another one fail the next brew session or 2 weeks later or whatever. So I talked to our local marketing department, and they ordered me some parts,
Nice.
which actually came early this week. So I'm going to actually rebuild those probably Thursday, and then get everything cleaned up again, thorough cleaning, and start brewing some more beer.
So you're not only Brewmaster, but also the maintenance department.
Yes.
for the brew system as well.
As you know, we all wear many hats.
This
and
is very true.
That's one of mine.
Well, cool. So have you been happy with the spike system overall?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Talking about things I learned, that was actually one of the things I reached out to them and said, hey, do you have replacement pumps? I don't see anything on your website. And kind of how we work, they sent me some troubleshooting guides, like, hey, here's a really good video, kind of similar to what we do here. And it was some guy that owns a brew shop that I think sells their equipment, and had one of their pumps sitting on the table and said, something goes bad, look at these 4 things. And I took it apart, and there's a little bit of grain that was kind of caked in there, nothing too serious, but that was probably when it stopped working. It just didn't pump it out the rest of the way. But yeah, this little Teflon thrust washer about
Nice.
about the size of your fingernail is just flat out wasn't there anymore.
Did you ask for anchor bolts to pre-ship on that pump?
No, but I did have marketing ask me, do you need all of these? I'm like, yes, I need 2 of them now, and I'm going to use the other 2 for spares.
Nice.
So
Inventory.
yes, exactly.
Cool. So lessons learned, is it on our marketing and sales process? Is it, it sounds like some maintenance lessons learned. Is it technical, the brew process, or is it kind of all of the above?
Yeah, some of the stuff that kind of got passed along in that video that actually wasn't really aware of, that they kind of mentioned, just when you're running the pumps, going back to my driveway days, you're constantly with the paddle and you're moving grain around, things like that. And one of the things they actually suggested was not doing that when you're running the pumps, because you'll pick up extra grain, and that's probably why that thrust washer actually just busted up and just disappeared. So yeah, just learning more just about the process, simple things like that, where maybe I only have to replace that every 50 batches or something like that. So
okay. And as far as systems are concerned, say we wanted to, I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but say we wanted to have 5 times the output. Is it just a scaled up system?
Yep.
Okay, so everything's just bigger, faster, more volume.
Yeah, more electricity. You
Yep.
know, we talk, about sports lighting. At some point you have to bump it up to 480 because
Yep.
of amp draw. That honestly, that's probably what we'd have to look at. It would be
So the power requirements change a little bit.
yeah, it would probably be a 480. The heating elements go up in size, wattage. So it'd be a little bit of an upgrade than what we have in the panel there, but get an electrician and they'll get it wired up for you. But it's literally scaling up the pots, the grain, the amount of hops, the water. Your efficiency. We talk about LEDs. Your efficiency still stays right about the same. So we run at about 80 to 85% ish with our grain efficiency, meaning that we get about 85% of the sugar out of the grain, which then in turn makes beer. So going to a larger scale, you're still looking at the same efficiency, just you're making that much more at that point.
Nice. So a home brewer that's looking to scale up to the system that we have, what are some of the tips and the tricks and some of the hardest lessons learned beyond pump maintenance? But how could you help somebody streamline their learning process?
Read as much as you can. Trial and error. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Just like any sort of hobby, message boards are great. Forums, Google,
Instagram.
Yeah, honestly, Instagram. I know you follow Spike like I do.
Yeah.
They've got great resources on that sort of stuff. They'll even share other people's homebrew setups, which just seeing how somebody else does it. We utilize pumps to move fluids, from one container to another. Where somebody that's in their garage in their driveway just utilizes gravity. You put your bigger tank up here and you slowly step it down until the bottom one is the fermenter, and you never used a single pump at all. So, constantly try stuff, constantly read. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Yep. Do you have any favorite recipes?
The current rendition of the WiLL Ale is probably my favorite, which is actually a tweaked recipe of my personal recipe, which is, what does the hop say? Which is a little one that I had Tyler help me name at some point, made a label for in my homebrew days. But it's real flavorful. A lot of good feedback on it. It's got some hops there, but it's not overly hoppy for the people that the idea of hops just turns them off.
They don't want that IPA stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's got some good flavor there, but if you're what they like to call hophead, you get that too. So it's good. It's something that we've gotten good feedback on. And then what I like to call my pseudo lager beer, which is a beer we don't lager, will be another one I'm gonna make. I'm not sure if this batch, possibly the next batch, but that was another one we got good feedback on. In fact, that was one of the ones that we sent a decent amount to one of our sales reps. So
nice.
And they said they really liked it.
So have you got repeat requests for the same beer from certain reps, or it's kind of they taste it, they like it, and we just send it at random, or do we have any?
It's been kind of at random.
Okay.
The one we just canned is actually what we had at our picnic out at Lakeside there, which was a summer wheat beer. That's the one I also say it is also a cursed beer, because that's the one that took out those 2 pumps, and I've had issues with that recipe every time I've ran it. But that one turned out well actually this time, so that might be a repeat. I have a real simple, again, good tasting IPA that actually went over pretty well. A little smoother, again, not overly hoppy. I know some people out there have requests for porters and stouts, so we're going to try to work those into the winter months, because that's definitely stout season, and get a nice thick, heavy beer they could sip in the middle of January as opposed to July. So,
do you have a coffee beer recipe at all?
I want to do one.
Yeah.
I'd like to utilize some local coffee roaster.
Yeah,
I know there's
awesome.
a few in the area.
Yeah.
That I'd like to try it. There's also I I don't know if I would necessarily make a mead, but I do want to make another gluten-free beer with some honey. And there's a guy I actually played hockey with as a kid that we've gotten back in touch with in the last several years. He's got like a small hobby farm that he's got bees. In fact, he gave me some of the honey he had that my girl's been eating up on English muffins like every day for breakfast. So I'm going to use some of that, try to, get some local ingredients in there. He actually is interested in our spent grain because he's got chickens. He's like, I'll feed it to the chickens. I got a compost pile. Because up to this point, we've just been tossing it, and I'd like to see that get used in other places. Tyler and I have talked about making, like, getting it dried and making like a granola out of it, but that's pretty labor intensive.
So what's left? You have sugar.
Yep.
There's 25% of the sugar is left, but what else? What else is the grain?
It's it's barley,
Yep.
it's wheat, pale ale malt, just different grains. They're ground up. The consistency is similar to like ground up oatmeal.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty coarse yet. So you could dry it out. Some brew pubs, like if you get down to like Milwaukee, they'll grind it up into a flour, and that's their pizza dough.
Nice.
And depending on what you use, you can still make it, gluten free, depending on what grains you pick. I guess not specifically grains, that's pretty much all gluten, but stuff along those lines.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I mean, from my view, 2 or 3 years in, I think it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think it always amazes me every time we bring somebody through. Could be a vendor, could be a customer, could be somebody we're interviewing. Everybody always wants to know about the brew room. So we're geeking out about products and the company and everything else, and like they stop in their tracks as soon as they see the brew room. So yeah, it's been a great great part of the operation. I overwhelmingly positive. I think maybe some people were a little bit concerned about having a brewery associated with with the operation, but my view is always it's like if you're in Napa, California, I'm sure it'd be okay to have a winery on
absolutely.
site. We're in Wisconsin, it's just part of the part of what we do, making lights and making beer. So, but yeah, I think it's been great. I know from a sales standpoint, sending out free 6-packs with custom labels, just been overwhelmingly positive, and certainly is a great talking point. And then when people come through to be able to enjoy the operation and have a glass of beer while doing it's pretty cool as well.
It's crazy some of the people that have toured through here, whether they're reps, contractors, future hires, what have you. It's amazing how many will pop their head in and say that they've they either homebrew themselves, they've touched in, they've dabbled in it a little bit, or their father, their cousin, or somebody like that. It actually circles all the way back to when you sent some beer to somebody up at Musa, and
we got to get that guy on the
the guy took a
picture,
picture, sent it to his son, and his son worked at Spike. Like the fact
talk
that it came
about
around
a
full
small
circle.
world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we got to have. We've talked about it, but now we're kind of getting back in the WiLLcast swing of things. Getting somebody from Spike would be awesome.
Yeah, I want to say his name's Brian. I know we have his email, but we'll definitely have to reach out to him again.
So, what are some of your equipment upgrade dreams? I know the Spike has come out with a system or a new system since we've implemented this one, but do you have kind of like a vision in your head of what the next level might be?
So one thing I'm actually looking at probably doing sometime soon is I'd still keep the exhaust fan in there because it does generate a lot of heat in there, but kind of looking at it up at the ceiling, we don't have water damage or anything like that, but you can see where there's two nail heads kind of peeking through the drywall, where I think over time a lot of moisture in that room, even though we have a very strong exhaust fan, could be at some point damaging to the room, the ceiling, the walls.
Could we check for mold?
I think we're good at there, but over time it certainly could be, could potentially be a concern. And Spike actually has a system where So basically a lid that goes on your boil kettle, and then there's a tube that goes up and down, and you pump water into the side of it, and basically the steam goes up through there. The water kind of condenses it and just drops it down, which I'd probably just have it drop down in the sink because it's right there.
Yep.
But it eliminates the need for a very strong exhaust fan.
Yep.
It literally takes the majority of the moisture out of the air.
Yep.
Pumps it down the drain or pumps it down into a bucket or whatever. So something like that is probably something we'll look at implementing, especially as we ramp up production. Again, I don't want, to ruin our nice walls, on this nice building because, moisture just isn't escaping as efficiently or as it could be. So, so that's one potential upgrade probably would implement sooner than later. And then the other thing is actually getting a chilling system for the fermenter. So right now, the process of carbonation comes out of the fermenter, it goes into kegs, and then we put it in the kegerator. I crank the CO2 up and then let it sit for a week, and it works. I mean, it's the way most home brewers do it. It's a really efficient way to do it. You can control the CO2 levels pretty well. Now that we have that dialed in, I don't think we've had any real issues with over-carbonated beers. So that's dialed in pretty well. But what we do by chilling the fermenter itself is carbonate it within the fermenter, so it skips that transfer, which also helps eliminate potential infections. Because anytime you're moving liquid around, there's always that chance of some sort of germ or something like that in there. And generally, that's actually how sour beers are basically made, except for you're purposely infecting the beer, where if you don't want to infect it, you try to keep everything as clean as possible, which obviously I do a lot of. But if you keep it in the fermenter, you can carbonate in there, you just have to chill it down, and you can actually take your carbonation time from a week down to a day. So I could start chilling it, after half a day, get it to the temperature, put it on CO2, and then the following day it's ready to can. So you're eliminating a whole week of production in a sense. So as we like to talk about efficiency, making the whole
lean beer production.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Almost in the sense of just in time production. If you want to get into that aspect of it. So so from dumping grain into the water for the first time to canning it, sending it out the door, we could potentially be talking less than 2 weeks. Where right now we're at about 3. So that's kind of more of a down the road sort of thing that I would really look at, because the system we have in place right now, it works, it's fine. There's no real issue there. But the steam catcher, as I'd like to call it, that's probably the main upgrade to kind of look at down the road. And then, who knows, capacity after that. But, the systems has fit us pretty well at this point.
Nice. Well, very cool. So what did you bring along?
So I picked these, my lunch hour here. I've been growing these for about 4 years now. And much as I'm sure you can relate now that you have 2 children running around the house, finding time to see that, get your extracurricular activities, your hobbies in, kind of takes a back road to their extracurricular activities. So I haven't had a chance to ever harvest my hops. They're at a point right now where they're actually pretty much ready to go.
So what's the cycle time on the plant?
So it is a perennial. So I mean, it grows back every year.
Yep.
Every spring, I cut down the old vines, which vines with a B though. So some people think it's a vine, but it's a vine. I don't know why the difference is terminology, but whatever. So cut those down every spring. They'll start shooting up. You kind of cut those back, the fresh ones, and then the hardier ones kind of come up, and just let them grow up a string or a lattice structure of some type. And the hops will show up right around early July, mid-July. Probably about this size. There's certainly some, kind of bigger ones that grow over time. And, once you get to be about early to mid-September, they'll start kind of drying out just a little bit, kind of how these are now. And you pick them. You can dry them in a food dehydrator. Some people do in their oven. Some people just put them on a screen, just let them air dry. So you try to get about, I want to say I saw like you try to get like 60 to 70% of the moisture out of them, because otherwise they're real watered down and you don't get as much of the flavor. You have to use that much more. So I'm going to try to pick them this week and let them air dry for about a week, and I'll weigh them, see how much I have in weight. A typical batch of beer, I use about 4 ounces of hops in about a 10-gallon batch. So, and those are compressed pellet form, where I'll probably need like an entire bag worth if I use fresh hops. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, if you rip them apart, they're.
Is this a certain family?
So like this is a Cascade hop. I tried to grow both Cascade and Centennial. My Centennial hops never took off, but the Cascade, both of them I picked because they're a little higher on the hoppy side. This one I was still home brewing, so of course I was thinking IPAs because that's primarily what I drink. But not that I'm a beer snob to IPA, but it's what I tend to lean towards. So that's why I picked those 2 particular hops. The Cascade was the only one that grew, but it's a versatile hop. You can make just a simple pale ale, or even like the WiLL ale we do, where it's not. It's not an overly hoppy beer. It's versatile. They'll call it a flavoring hop and a bittering hop. So if you throw it into the early part of the boil, it's a bittering hop. If you throw it in towards the end, it's a flavoring hop, and it's citrusy, little bit of dankness to it. Going back to our earlier conversation, we walked in, but just a good all around hop.
So what are your favorite non Nick Putty brewed beers right now?
Pseudo Sue, which is made by Toppling Goliath. Jordan has a relative, I forget the relation.
Where are they out of? Are they
down in Iowa?
Oh, they're in Iowa. Okay.
Yeah. Him and Jake actually brought me back some beer. They had a road trip down to a sports job site. I forget which job it was off the top of my head, but he's got a relative that works there, so he gets beer from there, and he said all the time. So I'm like, yes, please.
That's a good hookup.
Yeah, which funny that I met up with a friend of mine earlier this past weekend. She got me a collaboration beer that they did with Central Waters, which is up towards Stevens Point.
Yep.
Barrel-aged beer that was not cheap. So she hooked me up with that, and there's the Toppling Goliath version I guess they're going to put out in October, so I was going to tell Jordan about that. But that's like a top 3 beer for me. Bell's beer, Bell's Brewing out of Michigan. Just about anything they make is right up there. I try to avoid the larger conglomerates, but there's still some out there that are still decent beers. I mean, really, if you look at say Sam Adams and Dogfish Head, they've now combined, and they're probably bigger than some of the macro brews that are out there.
Are they still private? Are they private equity owned, or is it still?
Yeah, they're
family owned, or
it's still family owned.
Okay.
Sam, who started Dogfish Head, and then I forget the guy's name who started up Sam Adams, but yeah, they're both still privately owned.
Okay.
The guy that founded Sam Adams, actually, I found this out several years back, has like a fund where he will help start up breweries.
Really?
Yeah, he's very much into the brew industry.
He's a craft guy.
Yeah, he wants to
Nice.
see other people, try to build their own brand, try to get out there and, continue to, kind of edge out some of the macro brews. And don't get me wrong, I'm not above a Busch Light on a Sunday night hockey league. So, so I will literally drink if it's cold. I'll certainly try it. I've had a pizza beer, and it was as awful as it was. I still tried it. So, but
it sounds great.
Oh, not good.
So do you see the market? Is there still like a hard shift towards the cider direction?
Honestly, the cider's been pushed aside.
Has it really?
It's all seltzers right now.
Seltzer, okay.
Yeah. I don't quite understand it. I mean, I get the appeal of it. It's it's refreshing on a hot summer day, which beer used to be that. Now it's something else. But I've had a few here and there, and I get the appeal, but at the same time, I just like the taste of a good beer, you know. So every major beer manufacturer, whether it's craft or macro brew is making some form of seltzer.
Yep.
Because you almost have to, otherwise you're just literally just throwing money away.
Yeah, you got to ride that wave. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And, you and I are old enough, at least myself anyway, to know that, all this is what wine coolers were 10, 15, 20 years ago. Honestly. Bartles and James, if anybody...
History repeats and it rhymes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anybody that remembers Bartle and James commercials...
the little foil wrap on,
yeah,
on
exactly.
top.
That's all we're looking at right now.
Well, man, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks for all you do. We'll chat again soon.
Sounds good.
All right, cool.